What food has made you wonder, how did our ancestors discover that this was edible? Wild almonds are poisonous. There is a mutation that blocks their cyanide production significantly. One of the earliest domesticated plants, some genius in early civilization figured out how to either cultivate the mutants or graft them. Corn has a similar story. It was bred from a plant called tiasin. Tiasin has a hard layer that can't be bitten through and only a few kernels. Nobody is sure why the Mesoamericans bred it to be edible, or even how. A professor I had in university surmised that they actually had figured out how to turn tiasin into beer, and so the selective breeding was to produce a more sugary plant to make better beer, and over time it led to a plant that was actually edible. Edit, fix some atrocious grammar. People sure do love their alcohol. Honestly, most societal advancements probably owe thanks to beer. Our society flourished because we wanted better alcohol, and our technology flourished because we wanted better porn. If someone figures out how to make porn that gets you drunk, we will enter a technological singularity and become gods. I was watching a documentary about a native Brazilian tribe that prepares calm. The process involves cooking this very starchy root, chewing it and letting it ferment to produce an alcoholic beverage. The process of chewing is necessary as the enzymes from our saliva create the sugars necessary for fermentation. As this old woman is chewing the roots, she says, "I wonder how our ancestors figured this out." Olives. Not for oil but for eating. You can't just pick and eat them, somehow someone figured out if you cured them for weeks they transform into something edible. Cheese? Milk? Sure. But once it goes sour, it's disgusting. Then it gets lumpy and stinks. At some point after that stage, someone thought, "I'm going to eat those lumps." You're underestimating the scarcity of food and long periods of famines that our species endured till we got to a point where we could erase all trauma from our psyche by deluging ourselves with 55 different flavors of breakfast cereals. That's pretty much the answer to everything in this thread. Starvation first, then trial and error to make it better. Curl. The flesh of the Greenland shark is toxic, but the Icelanders found a way. N.wikipedia.org. The traditional method is by gutting and beheading a Greenland or sleeper shark and placing it in a shallow hole dug in gravelly sand, with the now cleaned cavity resting on a small mound of sand. The shark is then covered with sand and gravel, and stones are placed on top of the sand in order to press the shark. In this way the fluids are pressed out of the body. The shark ferments in this fashion for 612 weeks depending on the season. Following this curing period, the shark is then cut into strips and hung to dry for several months. During this drying period a brown crust will develop, which is removed prior to cutting the shark into small pieces and serving. Curl contains a large amount of ammonia and has a strong smell, similar to many cleaning products. It is often served in cubes on toothpicks. Those new to it may gag involuntarily on the first attempt to eat it because of the high ammonia content. First-timers are sometimes advised to pinch their nose while taking the first bite, as the smell is much stronger than the taste. It's essentially rotten shark jerky, that comes with a strong scent of Windex. I read a story once about how a Native American tribe tried a potential new food. The test subject was normally a young male. Say it was a new seed. They would first soak, then boil and drain several times, then roast. Test subject would try it. If there were no adverse side effects they would repeat above but remove one of the steps, and did so until the food was tried raw. Not sure how true this was, but it kinda makes sense. We have a tree seed in NZ, eaten raw it causes fits and then paralyzes the person. Needs 3 to 4 steps to make it eatable, yet was planted in groves and eaten by the Maori. Normally, the steps for testing to see if something is edible goes like this: 1. Do other animals eat it? 2. Can I touch it without it hurting me? 3. Can I boil it and then rub it on my skin without it hurting me? 4. Can I boil it, chew a bit, spit it out, and feel okay? 5. Can I boil it and eat a bit? Just hope it isn't a gimpy tree. Mushrooms. There are tens of thousands of types of mushrooms, and plenty that'll kill you. But like 20 of them are good to eat, so trial and error? There are even some magic ones. They say it's observing stoned animals that humanity found out various psychedelic food, reindeer for magic mushroom in northern lands. Jaguars will chew on copy vines, one of the 2 ingredients in ayahuasca, and trip absolute balls. Edit, thanks for the silver, kind stranger. Jamie, pull that up. Look at the balls on that thing. Stinging nettles. They're used to make tea and soups in at least France and Italy, that I know of. I tried soup d'ordes France. It tasted nicely spicy, but seriously, who thought this plant stings my skin, makes it swell up and burn like hell? Why don't I put it in my mouth? Sadly, I think the answer is a desperate starving peasant. Edit. Apparently a lot of people have a lot of feelings about nettles. My inbox is being stung. Things I have learned. 1. Nettles are your friend. 2. Nettles are not your friend. 3. People play a lot of RuneScape. Finally, to those with the nettle sting anecdotes, particularly the butt wiping ones, check out the history of the Gimpy Gimpy plant in far north Queensland. That one got some colonists, but good. I'm sure a number of otherwise dangerous foods were discovered by desperate people. Cashews are another nut that needs to be roasted first. Cacao. You have to do a whole lot to turn it into chocolate. It's true it takes a lot to make it chocolate, but they were eating it in a lot of other ways first. And originally chocolate was closer to what we consider to be dark chocolate, only way more intense. Taro root and leaves. If you don't cook it, your mouth and throat will feel like they are getting cooked because calcium oxalate forms tiny razor-sharp crystals in the plant. And if you eat enough, you can die. People still get poisoned from eating that because it's just sitting there on supermarket shelves in the fruit and veggies section. Yay, one of few poisonous, raw, plants that are commonly available. Your ancestors had a game called Is That Edible? The premise is simple: if you find edible food, you live. Otherwise you die. The people who won that game became your ancestors. You come from a long line of people who played that game expertly. Duxing sucks. No, back then people were only allowed to duck after they ate. No sex until you finish your plate. Meringue, especially before electric whisks. What sort of weirdo decided in taking the yolks out of these eggs, then I'll whisk the whites by themselves for about 2 eternities, then I'll whisk in some sugar but only a tiny bit at a time, then I'll bake it but with hardly any heat and see what happens. Someone who spent just as much time churning milk so long it turned to butter. Edit. From what it seems, I have gotten like 200 comments about how everyone has their own personal opinion of how someone rode an animal or ran a long time with a bag of milk. It seems everyone thinks they are coming up with the same theory by themselves. John? What are you doing there, buddy? I'm churning milk. You've been going about that for about 3 hours, isn't it ready? It's not done yet. John's not done yet. Chilies. Imagine finding something that is physically painful to eat and deciding to add it to everything. Holy shit, did you know that humans eat capsaicin for fun? Aliens, probably. I've come across several RV stories that use this concept about how humans are dangerously insane because they regularly imbibe poisons and other toxic substances for simple enjoyment. Capsaicin, caffeine, ethanol, nicotine, various acids. Hell, some of us even inject a form of one of the most toxic substances of the planet into our face just to look better, Botox. If there are aliens out there watching us, they probably look at humanity as if we're the local neighborhood crackhead who rummages through bins and tried to get high smoking used tampons. On second thought, let's not go to Earth. 'Tis a silly place. Aliens lock their doors when driving past Earth. Lol. Durian fruit. That's an easy one. When durians fall off the tree and rot ferment, they attract an orgy of wild animals who get drunk off it. Elephants, monkeys, fruit bats, honey bears, squirrels, and even tigers all seek out the rotting fruit. The elephants will roll around on the ground, the monkeys fall out of trees, and the bats' sonars get ducked up and the fly into shit or slam into the ground because they all get wasted from it. Some dude looked at them and thought that could be me. I'm bored, but they sure as hell aren't. How can I change this? When I was in Australia, was taught about some plants and things the Aborigines used to forage for. There was one plant they ate which needed several stages of preparation in a particular order to be edible, and was lethally poisonous at every stage until the whole process was complete. Milk and stuff is easy to explain. We probably saw it fed calves and decided to try it ourselves one hungry day. But how many people have to be poisoned before folks stop thinking if I just boil it one more time I definitely won't die? Edit. Thanks to Azama14 for the name. I'm pretty sure what I'm remembering were Moreton Bay chestnuts. Lobsters. Who the hell first looked at a water cockroach with murder fists and said yummy? A poor person. And now the joke's on poor people because they can't afford lobsters.